Alright, Zoe Louise, let's get down with some learning. Okay, there is one thing I wanted to show you which I think will help you with drawing bodies, and that is tracing. Now, when you go tracing, what I want you to do is find characters or whatever it is that you want to draw. Which sort of characters do you want to draw? Do you want to do anime? Do you want to do realistic figures? Do you want to do cartoon characters? Whatever it is, this is going to help, because this is how you draw anything. This is how you learn how to draw anything, pretty much. Now, this is Flintheart Glomgold from the new DuckTales, and seeing as how he's my favorite, I'm going to draw him for you. Basically, when you trace it, don't trace the fine lines that have already been drawn by somebody else. Okay? You're not looking for the perfection of the lines so that you can run around and show people that you can trace. What you are looking to do is trace the forms so that you know where to draw them for future reference, for future drawings. Okay, look. Nyeh, 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 nyeh. Okay, as you can see, I just traced his face, and yeah, it looks like him. Of course it does. I've just traced over an actual drawing of him, but I didn't really learn anything by doing that. I couldn't recreate this drawing from scratch on a different piece of paper, tomorrow or whatever, because it hasn't taught me anything. So what I'm talking about is, instead of drawing the fine lines, draw the major shapes. And in Glomgold's case, his major shapes look like this. That's essentially the shape of his body from this angle. Okay? If that were a square, it's a slight rectangular shape, and it's bent on all sides. So it's kind of squashed. I like to think of it as a slightly squashed rectangle. Cool? His head is I like to think of it as a slightly squashed circle, or at least squashed at the bottom. Think of like a lump of cookie dough rolled into a ball and then dropped on the bench. All right? Because that's what it looks like. It's just kind of flat at the bottom. And then for his beard, because that's another major feature for this bloke, his beard looks like a kind of egg shape at the top and a more pointy egg at the bottom. In fact, if you combine these two shapes here, he looks like a fried egg with the yolk in the middle. Like that, see? Now, those are a lot of his major shapes right there. He doesn't have an awful lot going on for him shape-wise because of the way that he's drawn originally. And a lot of animated stuff, a lot of animated characters, they're very simple shapes because they had to be, because the animators would spend hours and hours and hours drawing these guys. They couldn't be spending hours and hours drawing the same thing over and over, drawing complicated stuff, with lots of rendering and other things. So I'm just going to quickly trace in the other shapes, and I'll go over them once they're in. So I'm not going to bother with any of his costume because none of that is particularly relevant to what I want you to practice. But that's it. Alright, we know he's got a walking stick, so we'll keep that in there. His feet are, well, they're this shape. So they're kind of a rounded triangle with a foot, with a toe there, like that. And yeah, so if you were looking straight down on it, that circle there would be his leg going down to his foot. Those are his spats. Alright, so when you turn that in, because it's in perspective, to make it look like he's standing on the ground, it's very much that shape. Alright? And his other foot, so yeah, if you were just going to draw it like that, and then you've got the toe on there, and you've got two cylinders for his legs. His are more sort of pointing down, obviously, because alright, but those are the basic shapes for his feet. The basic shape for his arms is a cylinder. So cylinders look like that. So if you need a reference thing, use a tin of Marmite or a tin of baked beans or a jar of Marmite or something like that. That's a cylinder. Cup. So if you've got a long cup, you can get a tapered cylinder, which is means it's shorter. It's less round. Not less round. The diameter is smaller at one end than at the other. That's what cups look like. Tend to look like that. Yeah, that's what his arms are. They're cylinders, somewhat tapered a little bit. So if this arm here was straight out, it would look like that, with the hand there. Okay, that's the shoulder, that's the wrist. In between, halfway point, exactly halfway roughly. Good grief. Roughly halfway is where the elbow is. Okay, so if you were going to turn that in perspective, that would be about there. Okay, with the hand and the wrist and so forth. He's got his slightly bent because that's what makes it look more interesting, and it's very bent on this side, which is where you get this kind of foreshortened look going over the wrist up to the fingers. Now, this is the trick. This is what you practice to make yourself better, and this will make you better a lot faster, because when you look at this, there's all these details here. There's all these he's got his jacket and his buttons, and he's got his tie and his shirt, and he's got this and he's got his sporran, and the sporran's got a button and it's furry, and he's got all his kilt, and that's got its own shape, and like specific shape, and it's got its own patterns on it. All of that becomes extremely distracting to the reality, to the actual construction of the drawing. And so when you remove all of that from the equation, what you're left with is this. This is the bare bones. This is the good stuff. Because you can take that. That's all simple stuff to recreate. You can take those and you can push those aside and you can recreate them at whatever size you like. So if you want to make a nice small little drawing, if you want to take this and put it on a greeting card for one of your sisters or something, that might be a bit small for the head actually, certainly too small for the beard. But that's okay, because I've got this here, I can see that it's too small. I can shorten this up. I can put his arm out here. I can put his feet down here. I know that his hat touches the top of his head, even though in the drawing itself you don't see the top of his head. Because I've drawn through it, I can see that his hat touches the top of his head. The pom-pom here touches the top of his head, and I can see that the hat gets drawn through there. You know, drawing in all the rest of this stuff, the beak and the eyes and the big giant eyebrows. That's all. That all comes with you know, once you've got the landmarks, his arms and his legs and his body, then you've got everything. And that's the important part. Now, this is for one particular character, and I can't imagine that you've designed a character or thought of a character that has a body shape that would utilize a square. But you might have. These are some other ones that I've done previously. Okay. This here is from the Masters of Anatomy Book 1. I just traced over the top of this. These use simple shapes as well. When you start drawing them in, you start to find them because you're breaking everything down into the simple anatomy. You know, you give him his Superman underpants, you give him his cylinder legs, triangle feet, cylinder arms, kind of fudge in the hand there, round head, super square jaw, yay, done. You know, it's not great, but that's a person. You know, you can see that that's a person. And then you can just kind of fill in the details as you go, or as you need them. I've given a couple of options here for some other stuff, which I thought was funny. These are from Toonbox Studio. He likes to draw pin-ups. He uses this shape a lot and just kind of connects it. And his, you know, there's nothing wrong with the way that he draws figures. Ta-da! This one here I thought was hilarious. This is from Bad Days, which is an internet series on YouTube. I just wanted to show you, this is, you know, the basic construction of a character. It's just that. You know, it's a square, essentially, on a cylinder for the neck, sitting on a triangle, sitting on a couple of other cylinders for the legs, sitting on some flattened, some perspective rectangles for the feet. You know, I thought that was hilarious. You got Rick Sanchez up here. He's also simple. This guy uses a triangle. Rick uses a square, and his legs just come straight off that square. And his head is kind of an oval, a bit of a neck there. You know, some sort of weird trapezoid triangle things for the feet. Blam! Those are the construction lines of these characters. If we take it over here, we've got Homer Simpson. This is a very stylized Homer head. His head is usually more of a straight up and down cylinder like this. This is not the greatest Homer Simpson that ever lived, but still pretty funny. Yeah, so this one here is a lot more stylized, but his body is still just a triangle. Like, look at that. His legs, these are awfully stylized again, but they are cylinders. All right. And his arms also cylinders that kind of taper from the shoulders through to the wrists. Simple stuff and fun. So essentially that's it. I am going to probably do a few more of these and just sort of keep going, because I think that this is the trick. This is where all the good stuff is. You just need to find the characters that you want to think and copy them and copy them and copy them. And what you'll start to find is that you're able to recreate what you've copied. It'll all just sort of start going into your muscle memory and into your mind. You know, the things that you see, the things that you draw, they stick there for a little bit. And if you keep drawing them, then they get really, really cemented. So if you find the characters and the forms that you want to be able to draw, that's how to do it. And this is how to really cement that stuff in there. You know, if you've got the human figures, or the more realistic figures, or you want to draw bodies like the Simpsons. I can't imagine anybody wants to really draw bodies like the Simpsons, because that's a very specific style. But you know, this guy here, he was super fun, because like, you know, that's the head shape, is a circle with kind of a weird box on it like that, and his shoulders are kind of hunched up, so that's a cylinder like so, and it went down to this point like that, down to his crotch like that. So you just kind of pull it off, because I'm kind of familiar with drawing through and stuff like that, you know. Yeah, don't be afraid to just trace it out and trace your own lines, trace your own shapes. These are the shapes that I see. They might not be the shapes that everybody sees. I tend to think personally in a lot of boxy shapes, this kind of thing. So, you know, when drawing a chest cavity, I tend to think like this. And that's kind of how I draw a chest. I tend to think in either triangles or squares. But that being said, this guy here, the Paris Christou, the guy who does Cherry, I've watched him draw. He draws in circles. Like, he draws ovals for the chest, and then he'll draw ovals for the pelvis. He draws circles for the shoulders, and he'll draw that down to an elbow. And he'll kind of just sort of wing where the placement of the things are going to go. Circles for the knees and for the ankles. And then he'll just sort of he'll draw a little dainty wee foot like so. But he thinks always, because his character is always, it's a fairly soft and supposed to be sexy pin-up character. So he thinks in curves. He thinks in, what's going to look curvy and so forth. But he is always thinking in ovals, in circles, in soft shapes. I tend to think in, even when I draw women, like I traced this from the Masters of Anatomy book, but even when I was tracing the shapes that I wanted to see, I was tracing, triangles and hard shapes like that. Very, very edged shapes, I guess, because that's just what I see. That's just how I've always seen people when I draw people. I don't know why, but yeah. Again, I can't tell you how to see the figure. All I can tell you to do is find the figures that you want to draw, the characters that you want to draw, and then create your own landmarks. Invent your own landmarks. You might see something else when you draw the figure than the triangle here with hips on it, because that's just all I see is a triangle with hips on it. And you've got legs that go down there, and legs go there, and so on and so forth. Arms, etc. Blah blah blah. All right, I really hope that this is going to help you. I think it will. I think it's going to really open up your bodies, your drawing of your bodies and stuff like that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some of your work. So yeah, you can just send it through to me. All right, bye.